Hi there. Let's do the Good Life meditation for today. First, let me get this consumption out of the way. Greetings from under the riding bridge here at Siberia, California. If you ever want to come here, it's easy to find. Just go to Siberia and then look for there's two bridges, one on the east and one on the west side of the ghost town. This is the one on the west. Such a slob. Now there's a last bit in there. Well, I guess that counts for getting it out. Oh, good gosh. I'm such a slob. Okay, this is the Good Life meditation for today. Today's the 17th day of May 2019, 2 days before my birthday. I'm excited about that. I thought I was turning 56, but my wife corrected me. I'm only turning 55. So that's good. It's funny because it kind of makes you think like, oh, I get another year. Not necessarily. You only get as many years as I get. I work today's Friday afternoon, morning. So I'll be home tonight, but I work both Saturday and Sunday. I teach kids teach teens to drive. It's my weekend job. And then, my family's going to take me out. I asked them to take me out to a nice lunch, maybe either dim sum or my daughter has Korean friends, and they've turned around some really good Korean restaurants. So maybe Korean food would be nice too. And my wife was asking me what I want, and I really didn't want anything, but I told her, I thought about it today, and I thought, a tripod would be nice, a little tripod that I can use. Similar to what I'm using, you can't see it, but I've got this tripod set up in such a way that it's got the low profile. It's right up against the bridge. I'm trying to cut down the wind. The wind's really blowing out there today. And so I'm hoping to cut down the wind noise. Maybe I'll even try to do a book reading here. Maybe I'm going to cinch a little bit closer. Every little inch helps improve the audio quality, but then you have to see more of me. So, apologies for that. Okay, so the Good Life meditation is something that I do every day to remind myself of my principles and my objectives in the opposite order. Objectives first and then the principles. And I do this for two reasons. One, in order to think about them and critique them. If maybe today's the day I'll find out one or all of them are not good to hold. And then two, to remind myself, if they survive my critique yet again, then to remind myself what they are, so I can try to use them throughout the day. And that really does work. You don't have to dwell on this stuff all day long. You just have to remind yourself once in a while. I choose daily. Number one is the objective to be always ready to die. And it's written right up there on the bridge. Right over there. I've got all of these labeled across. In so far as I've so far written them out. Whoopsie, accidentally hit the button. Let's see if I can zoom in on that. There, you can kind of see them written up there. Zoom back out. So the first is to be always ready to die. To have my financial affairs in good order so that my family won't suffer if I'm gone. To have my relationships with the people in my life in good order so that there's nothing left unsaid or wanting to be done. And to have my art in good order so that whatever words I want to leave behind or images are in good order and ready to go. For the most part, I think I've achieved the second two. The first one is still a ways off. Another Another decade of work and I'll be in good shape at that one. There's nothing I can do but just to buckle under and do the hard work. Number 2, second objective is to make good and effective use of the time that I have. To not fritter it away or pretend it's forever. Or waste it like free water, like my wife likes to say. But to cherish these moments, really make good use of them. And I really feel like at this very moment, really live in that objective right now. It's the sound of that wind out there. This is the second video that I've made under the bridge today that I'm referencing that wind. Just that wind. It really brings me into the present. Good use of time today. And a good time to die. Not that I want to. I want to stay around as many years as I can. I like this. Number 3 is the development and maintenance of good and sound life principles. That's exactly these 6 objectives and 20. Well, it's actually 7 objectives now and 21 principles. I've added a few lately. That's what this recitation is all about. That's what remembering them is all about. That's what trying to live them is aiming to do. To flesh out if they're valuable, if I should keep them. Number 4 is the cultivation of good emotional reactions. To become a man or a woman, if that's what you are, who reacts well to the world. I hesitate to do that, to apply my objectives and principles outside myself. That's why I always talk about it from the perspective of the first person. But I do, it works, so I guess I shouldn't hesitate to share. I know it works from years of practice now. I'm not saying that I have this right. I'm just saying that I have some tools that seem to work. So why not talk about it from the perspective of us, rather than just me? Good emotional reactions. Never noticed how big that mountain was. Sure, I'll never be to the top. Good emotional reactions. Whatever comes, to react well. And that may mean bottling it up. Because it's the outward reaction that's important, that I'm trying to contain it. I'm trying to, even if it's necessary, just give the appearance of equanimity. It's like holding in pain sometimes. You think that used to be something that I thought was a bad thing to do. You shouldn't hold it all in. Because there was I was under the illusion that it would all come bubbling out and blow up sometime. Maybe that's true. But not if you can find a way to gradually release the pressure. Namely through doing this. This thing I do every day. One of the things I do not so much in this camera, but in my head, is I rehearse and I think about the things that didn't go so well. Try to weed out what I could have done better. Like yesterday, in one of my team meetings, I'm a project manager, something took the project by surprise. And I kind of let the team know that I was a little bit disappointed that had taken us by surprise. And I didn't think well about that ahead of time. In a way, I guess I was throwing some people under the bus. My intentions were good. I wanted to bring that to the attention of the team so that we would not do that again in the future. I didn't think well about the way they would take it. And as a result, I put people on the defensive I wound up taking the responsibility myself, because as the PM I should have been able to identify that and label it as an issue and track it to completion. And for various reasons I didn't do that. Not all necessarily my fault. But in the end I took the responsibility. After all, I'm the PM. It was my responsibility. And I do remember it coming up, and I'd forgotten beforehand. I reacted well. Everybody reacted well. But what I'm saying is, this was an example of, and I thought long and hard about it after the workday was done, as I was motoring on the motorcycle out here to the desert. I thought about it and how I could have handled that better. And I realized that if I'd thought it through a little more, if I'd reflected on it, I would have realized that it indeed had come up, and I had missed it. True, others had missed it too. True, if all of us were playing it down, it was a significant thing. We got lucky. It was bad form. But what I'm trying to say is, because I remembered it and I thought about it later, that took away the upset, or any upset that may have been there. Not really any upset, just, like I said, bad form. And it dissipated away. It's like releasing the valve rather than waiting for it to blow up. That's good emotional reactions by handling it better in the moment, or following the moment, and holding it in and doing our best to put on a good face. The next, and this is number 5, is the performance of good actions. Just doing good things throughout the day. So many little things we can do that make the world a better place. Put a smile on someone's face. Make this experience of life a little better for ourselves and others. Even others we'll never know exist. This is a little bit of that for me. I secretly hope that I might be able to help people with this. I know there's people out there suffering. Heaven knows I once suffered. I still suffer sometimes. But, like I said, I'm almost 55, and I have learned some things along the way. Hard-won lessons, cataloged and enumerated in this list. These items that we're talking about right now, that I'm talking about. And I hope that it's a bit of a good deed to put this out there. I kind of wish that, I'd stumbled across something like this sooner, because the options were very limited when I was young, when I was coming up. I had a few books, Thoreau and Emerson, and religious options, and a few smart people that I knew that I really respected, and some very good people that I knew and respected. Nobody really talked about rules or guidelines, self-imposed, to help along the way. It was either, listening to somebody like Thoreau admonish his fellows for their absurd ways of life, or Emerson hearkening to grand ideals of human nature, of how we might be, or even Aristotle and his perfect divine forms. None of that really did it. It wasn't like the simple stuff that I'm trying to say now in this. Or the other option was just give it all up to religion. Oh God, I give myself to you. Help me. Okay, good. It's all under control. I don't have to worry about any of this stuff anymore. For the ups and downs and twists and turns that would take, all at the small price of sacrificing your reason and adopting some strange seeming virtue called faith. Well, what a great price to pay for some peace. What a great price. Wow. This, especially when you consider how short how short our time is here. So anyway, doing good deeds throughout the day. Picking up a piece of trash, holding the door open for somebody, giving a smile to a stranger, being courteous, going the speed limit, holding our tongue when we don't have anything good to say, and trying to share whatever best practices we've learned along the way. Number 6 is the recognition of true limits and true opportunities. Knowing what really is and what is not within our capacity or potential. Watch out with this one, because recognizing the true limits may, if we're not careful about that, will rein ourselves in unnecessarily. I like to talk about the limits imposed by my age, because it's foremost in my mind. I feel my mind beginning to degrade. My prime is over. That's a limit. I'm certainly limited in years. My body has a diminishing limit. That's why I said, I see that mountain over there. I know I'll never reach the top. It's beyond my limits. But the near mountain there, that's within my opportunity. I could summit that one. True limits, true opportunity. Could I hit that big mountain if I really set my mind to it? Perhaps. Do I want to? Is that a good use of my time? Don't think so. Better to simply admire it here and catalog it as, put it in the column of things that will never be. And that's all right. It's all right to have lots of stuff that will never be. Good use of time again. Now, number 7. This is a new one. And I think I'm doing a really good job of it right now, if I do say so myself. It's number 7, 7th objective and final objective. Not in terms of my last objective in my life, but it would be a very worthwhile last objective. I call it one thing slowly. There's no room for it. Do you see that divider right there, that kind of white line? That's the divider from the objectives and the principles. Now, I finished writing the objectives for the book, The Good Life, that I'm writing, sequel to Going Alone. I finished before I had this objective in mind. So it's not there. So as soon as I write it, I'm going to have to pencil it in that little tiny space right there. Or is it there? I don't know. Let's talk about it. One thing slowly. Just do one thing at a time, and do that thing slowly. This has a way of stretching out the moments, even if we're on a deadline, even if we're in a hurry, even if we're at haste. Stretching it out and getting it done better. I like to remember the TV series Star Trek, The Next Generation? Remember how nobody ever ran through the decks? Nobody ever raised their voice too high or got too upset, even when there were an emergency situation, even when the ship and all lives and all hands on board were in danger. They're training to do one thing slowly, whatever it is, that thing that they had to be doing at that time, whatever their mission was, whatever their assignment was, whatever their training dictated, they did that one thing, and they did it slowly. And that has the advantage of avoiding mistakes and tripping up and causing confusion, spreading it among. I didn't necessarily think this idea up from that. I just kind of came up with it one day when I was trying to meet some difficult multi-deadlines on a single day. Instead of multitasking, I simply put them aside and did one at a time slowly. Sure, I had to work overtime, but I did a good job, and I was less stressed out. One thing slowly. And I'm doing that right now. I'm doing this one thing, which is the Good Life meditation, and I'm doing it slowly. It feels good. Oh. Now let's get on to the 21 principles. It sounds like a lot. Sorry if it sounds like this is a long video. Thanks for coming this far. first principle is called the principle of war. It's right there. Principle of war is simply my wish to make use of my time, to make good use of time each day, to try and see what's wrong with my ideas. I'm engaged in a warfare against everything that I hold true, and everything that I hold dear, and everything that sustains my lifestyle and my philosophy or my perspective. Everything that is all this apparatus of my considered life. I don't want to hold on to any of this stuff if it's not true. So I war upon it. I pick it up. Pick up each objective and principle, and I look at it from every side. I get my glasses on. For a real close look. Scowl my face. What is that dark spot in there? Oh, okay. Just a hole. Doesn't go anywhere. Not too big. Nothing rotten in there. And I do this. The instruments that I use to probe and pry after my objectives and principles is objectivity, to look at things for what they are to the best of my ability, and honesty, to honestly address what I see. Like, what's this hole? Oh my gosh, it's maggots. Like, rather than just simply saying, oh, it's just some dust in there. Be honest with myself. That's the principle of war. And I do that every day with all of these things. And try to do it with everything in my life. Like I like to say, nothing would please me more than to die bereft of any objectives or principles. If someone was to ask me just as I give out my last breath, so Kurt, what, all these years of your life, to what end? To what end? What did you learn? I would say, nothing. I was wrong about everything. Blah. What a great life that would be. Man, if I could only get there. And unfortunately, I'm failing at that because the number of things that I think I know just keeps going up. Darn it. Should be going down. I'm doing it wrong. So I will continue that war. Number 2 is the principle of reason. Reason is the tool that I use in that war. And I just mentioned honesty and objectivity. They are the sub-principles of reason. Some people claim that we can be too reasonable, which is an interesting claim. It doesn't mean if we're very reasonable that we're not subjective either, or that we're not willing to indulge the artistic or the touchy-feely or the woo. We just put it in its proper place. Put that stuff on the shelf of things that can't be probed and touched and managed and examined, and we can't get our glasses on and get a good look at because it's woo after all. That's all. I have that. And I enjoy it. It's the fun part of life. Imagining the sounds at night. Thinking about the what's behind that wind. And it's probably just nothing, but it's fun to imagine. Next is the principle of the homunculus. Right over there. Strange word. Homunculus is an old word that simply refers to a little man or a woman, for example, inside of our head that's controlling all the levers. I use that word in place of soul. I don't think we have a soul. I don't know, but every time I ask for people what a soul is, they simply say it's a spirit. And I ask what a spirit is, they simply say it's your essence. And I ask what essence is, and they say it's the thing that survives your death and goes on forever. And I ask what that is, and they say it's a soul. So I don't have a good answer. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it doesn't exist, but no one's been able to demonstrate it to me. So again, back to the reason part. So it goes on the shelf. I should create a shelf of here. Shelf of nonsense. A shelf of nonsense. But is that a good word for it? What would that be? Nonsense sounds like I'm being judgmental and critical. I am, kind of. The untouchable shelf. That's closer. I'm going to make something. I'm going to make it today. One of these shelves here in the bridge will become the shelf of nonsense. It'll have a different name. Or maybe I will settle for nonsense. Shelf of nonsense. Yeah. So the homunculus is my reminder that there's this consciousness inside of me ain't going nowhere. There's no escape hatch. When I keel over and die, consciousness is going to wink out. I don't know for sure, but to the all best knowledge so far, it seems to be the case. I have no reason to think otherwise. I will go back to the nothing that I was before I was born. And that's all right. That's dealing with the facts as they appear to be, not wishing for otherwise, comforting otherwise. Shelf of comforting otherwise? Nah. Okay, next is the home of good and evil. It's number 4. Good and evil do not reside out there in the universe. Despite the fact that the Bible will tell us that they're the heavenly tablets with all the thou shalts and the 613 no Mosaic laws. No reason to think that's true. Don't think there's a heaven. Certainly no tablets up there. I've never seen any absolute laws written anywhere in nature. It just seems to be stuff that we come up with. Maybe they're good rules in some cases. Maybe some of them kind of suck. Some of them are downright evil. I don't think they're there. I think that they are in here. They are the opinions that we have about life based on our experience. Good and evil belong with the homunculus. The homunculus has a little file cabinet in there where he or she keeps, the opinions of. There's a section for good, maybe a drawer for good and a drawer for evil, and they pull it out and say, this is good, this is evil, and it changes, and then to get what do you call it? Sanctioned. They say, and there's a similar copy up in heaven. This is just my local copy. So you better believe as I do. Thou shalt. Next is principle of purpose. There it is, which I wrote twice in the book. I mistakenly wrote that chapter twice. As far as I can tell, the only purpose in life is to have babies. And to stay alive as long as we possibly can, and to have babies. And then die and get the hell out of the way. Other than that, and that seems to be a mandate of life. Without it, life wouldn't be here. Other than that, I don't see that there is any particular purpose. So we make up our purpose, our purpose. My purpose is to live a virtuous life, where I define virtue as the pursuit of well-being. Whereas well-being is basically happiness. Not happy, and it's not any type of happiness. It's happiness that's not at the expense of others. So I could be a sadist and be very happy torturing others, but that's inflicting unhappiness at the same time, right? So you can kind of rank things on a scale. You can say, yeah, you're making you happy, but it's at what cost, right? So it drops it down. But happiness, such as building schools for children, that's going to make me happy. That's going to make the children happy. That's going to make the community better. Happiness sounds like such a frivolous thing, but really does boil down to that. Pleasure is maybe a better way to say it. Pleasure that is not at the expense of others. Cheating on my wife would not be a virtuous thing. Although it may have its immediate pleasure, it would be at a great consequence and expense and potential suffering, and in fact suffering. So it wouldn't be. We can work this out. It's a little complicated, but my purpose is the pursuit of virtue, the improvement of pleasure, of well-being, of life, of goodness. A lot of touchy-feely stuff, but I think you can get the idea in there. there's definitely a scale in this stuff. We can have objective measures of good and bad. We can move along the scale. As Sam Harris likes to say, there's the two extremes of absolute everyone in the best state possible all the time, and everyone's suffering as much as possible all of the time, right? And you can move along that scale. Of course, we have different ideas about what good and suffering is, but for the most part, if we speak enough, if we work it out, we can kind of be moving one way or the other. It's about as close as I'll ever get to an absolute. And I want to move us in this direction towards well-being. Sam says it better about that, the two scales. I've got to watch one of his videos, remember how he describes that. Mr. Harris, that is. The next is the atomic principle. I get to lift up my sand. There's some really fine dust over here. It's not dust, it's clay from when the flash flood came through here about a month ago. See if I can get some of that clay lifted up. It should be very fine. There it is. Clay dust. The atomic principle. You and I. Dust in the wind. I wonder if any of you were thinking of that as I did that. All we are is dust in the wind. Yeah, that's what we are. Soon. Very, very soon. Me, you, that. Atomic principle. Keep it in mind. Keep you honest. Keep you on your toes. Principle of nature. That's the one I just wrote today. It's the furthest one over. Here comes a train. I'll stop talking while it hoots its horn. Any second now. Principle of nature. Everything has a particular nature. That train's nature is to honk its horn 4 times, 2 long, 1 short, 1 long, as it approaches the railway crossing. I can count on that. Well, that was curious. It's supposed to be 2 long, 1 short, and then 1 long. But that was pretty much 4 longs. So that just goes to show us, right? The nature of this train is to honk its horn 4 times, but it's also the nature of the driver, of the engineer inside, to kind of do what the heck they were going to do. Have their own character and flair. So to the nature of just about everything. The nature of places, the nature of natural phenomenon, the nature of groups, the nature of individuals, the nature of ourselves. It's good to reflect on those things and remember them as we prepare to go through the day. I always try to ask myself as I begin the day, who will I interact with, what circumstances will I have, and what are the possible outcomes and consequences of each of these things. Number 8, the principle of maturity. And there are 2 sub-principles, wisdom and fortitude. Maturity is a state that we reach when we have the benefit of our life experiences, the wisdom of failure and success, and then the fortitude to abide by those facts in the future, not to repeat those mistakes, and to capitalize on the successes. That's a wise way of living. That is the pardon me. That is a good way to live. It's not always easy to do though, because we like to not deny ourselves the pain of not doing just so as we want to, repeating the darn mistakes that caused us problems in the past. Next is the principle of social principle. We are social animals. We need you and me and all of us. I need that train driver. You do too, even though we'll probably never know who that is. We need one another to survive. Because our best ends are social ends, as I always like to say. And it really is worthwhile to cultivate and maintain those social bonds, even if we're not very social people, even if we have a want to go alone. Number 10, and this is a new one, the principle of public speaking. Even now, way out here alone in the desert, if I'm talking and I bring up someone else, I'm going to talk about them as if they are here, as if they are listening to what I'm saying. And that should prevent me from speaking in any way that I would be ashamed to have them find out later, any way that might hurt them, more importantly. Prevents me from gossiping, and that's a good thing. I think I'm going to be a duller person for this, because we love to talk about other people, and I'm not going to do that. Or at least I'm not going to do it in such a way that I would be ashamed to have them know, or I would hurt them in some way. The principle of public speaking. Number 11, and by repeating this every day, helps me to remember to do this. It's already had an effect, although it's a tough one. Number 11, the principle of temperance. Temperance is our control. No, I'm sorry. The principle of is not temperance. The next one is the Feast of Offal. When we get upset, we spew out our upset in the world. Gosh darn the gosh dang you, all you, I got problems with all you people. And we make people upset. And good gosh, he's having a hard day. Ooh, yuck. And we kind of internalize it. And we also kind of grab a little popcorn. Wow, look at him, he's having a bad day. But we internalize that, and it kind of has a way of making us sick later. Later we'll be, gosh darn the gosh dang all you people, I got problems. And we progresses on one after another. It's a disgusting, gross fact. I don't want to engage in that. So one, I try to prevent giving it out myself by, as I said before, good emotional reactions. And two, prevent myself consuming the offal of others. Offal, of course, just being a word to describe the waste and byproduct of typically butchery. And in this case, the waste and byproduct of undisciplined and unprincipled living. Next is temperance. This is number 11 now, or 12. So we just have 10 more to go. Temperance is controlled consumption of all things, like I said, including our emotions, including our consumption, food and drink, of sex, work, whatever the heck it may be, just limiting ourselves. And there are 3 sub-principles. Suffering, because when we deny ourselves what we want, we suffer for that. Simplicity, because a simple life is a temperate life. And apathy, a really important one. Because when we recognize what's not within our control, and we apply apathy to that, then we don't let it bother us. I literally cannot control if my motorcycle won't start in just a while. It's I've done everything I can in terms of service and maintenance. If it doesn't start, then I'm not going to get upset about it. I'm simply going to take appropriate actions, which I'm prepared for, and I won't get upset. Likewise, if I lose my job tomorrow, probably not tomorrow, but Monday. Likewise, if I find out I've got a terrible disease, what a challenge that would be. But I would try to apply apathy to that, all the while doing whatever I can to, within reason, to save my life. Likewise, if a loved one dies, then there's nothing I could do about it. That sounds heartless, but it's quite a virtue if that can be pulled off. Still, it sounds heartless. Number 12 is agency and the great indifference. You and me are agents. These plants out here are agents. All life are they're agents. This bridge is an artifact of the agency of humans. It's kind of comforting, even though the humans that built it are not here. It's kind of comforting. It reminds us that they were here. It takes a little bit of the edge off the wilderness. Except at night. It's scary down here at night. The great indifference is all that stuff that's not agency. It's all that way out there. See all that? I don't know if you can see it. I don't think it'll come through the lens. It's there. The great indifference, the great emptiness of the universe, the indifference of the universe to the fact of us, or our suffering, or our welfare, or our very existence. That's why I say always go to the desert, which I should change to being always go to your desert, to remind yourself, myself, of the great indifference. Next is the best seat in the house. This seat right here is pretty good. My little chair that I keep out here under the bridge. It's not the best chair in the world, but it's a good one. Best seat in the house is simply a reminder that to be, not want to be anyone else, not want to be anywhere else, not want to be doing anything else, but to be okay with where I am, what I'm doing, and who I am. Did I say that in the right order? You get the idea. That's a tricky thing to do, even if it's, holding my legs in front of a porta potty that's locked someone's in and I'm about to poop my pants. That's the best seat in the house. Even if I poop my pants. How do you do that? It can be done. Well, all the while trying to, get things better, but being content all the while. Again, good use of time. Next is the Path of Wildness. Pretty much all this started because of the Path of Wildness. All those people that were writing to me in Japan asking me about that adventure. How do you do that? How do you have an adventure like that? How do you live an adventurous life and go to live in a foreign country and get a family and get a job and hike in the mountains of the beautiful mountains of Japan? And I would write, you plan and you take some risks and you go with your gut to a degree. So the Path of Wildness is realizing you want something, a decision needs to be made, giving yourself some time to think about it, collecting facts along the way, and when that time comes, either make the decision or give yourself a little more time. And then when the time comes, make a decision or give yourself a little more time. But within reason, eventually you have to stop giving yourself some time and either make a decision, give up the idea, or go for it. And the Path of Wildness, the moment of stepping onto the Path of Wildness is when you let our gut instincts kind of inform us a little bit, and it steers us and it says, that way, and you just headlong off we go. Could be to a paradise, beautiful grotto. Could be right off the edge of a waterfall. There's risk. But I would suggest that even if it's off the edge of the waterfall, you've done a virtuous thing in taking the courage to take a step in the direction of your dreams. Boy, I'll tell you, the consequence of not doing that later can be very deep and profound. That comes to the very next principle, which is the principle of the risk of avoiding risk. The surface level risks on life are things like getting a good education, finding someone to marry and settle down with, buying a home, saving money, of course getting a good job, all those things. These are relatively straightforward. These are the surface level risks of life. This is what your mom and dad would typically tell you to do. Go to school and find someone nice to marry, and get a good job and save the money and buy a house and whatever the case may be. But what if there's something inside of you that's going, I really want to have an adventure. I really want to be an actor or play music or do art or ballet or hike somewhere strange and make videos or whatever the case may be, or write a book. All I'm going to say is that if you don't do that, there's going to be consequences. Even if you do it a little bit, it'll help to alleviate those consequences later in life. Watch out. There are risks. We live long enough, typically, to live several lives. You can have the adventure life, and you can also have the other life. I recommend the adventure life first. Get that, I almost said get it over with. In a way it is get it over. Get it over with young. You'll have it with you all the life. It'll inform and make you whoever you will be. And it's plenty of time to find somebody. Get a good job. Get that education first, though. Do that early. Do that. Go the education all the way to a bachelor's degree. I know people are saying don't do that anymore. Just go get settled on a trade. I have my reasons to think that the 4 years of experience, at least 2 years in a university, 2 years in a college, are very valuable. It's something about the experience, something about becoming someone else. becoming that educated person. And I recommend don't go to an online school. Go to the real thing. It doesn't have to be an expensive one. Just anyone at all. And do that. And then the adventure. And then settle down. And is there a risk that you won't find somebody, that you won't get a great job, that you might not get a house? Yeah, there is that risk. But the other risk is there too. Next is the sin and damnation. There are 5 sins in my worldview: falsity, credulity, faith, superstition, and dogma. They're all the same thing. It's believing things without good reason. Falsity is simply believing things that are not true. Credulity is easy willingness to believe things that are not true. Faith is giving yourself a reason for believing things that aren't true when you don't have a good reason to think that they're true, and just simply masking that belief itself as a virtue. What a gross and disgusting thing. How in the world did that ever become a virtue? Oh my gosh. Skepticism is a virtue. Faith is not a virtue. Faith is a sin. It's almost a capital sin in my worldview. Superstition is just nonsense that we give a nice label to. And then dogma is when superstition and authoritative ideas about the world are given teeth by virtue of the fact that someone says so, or some authority says so, or tradition says so, or the like. Falsity, credulity, faith, superstition, and dogma. These are the 5 sins that lead to a life of damnation. What is that damnation? It's not hellfire and devils. It's the damnation of living a life believing things that may not be true. And that's damnable enough. Because I think this is the one life you get. What a waste it would be to waste it away, fritter it away on superstition or faith-based beliefs, or things that you cannot otherwise substantiate. And if you can't substantiate it, if you can't defend it, then it may not be worth holding. Not saying give it up, but be very tentative about holding on to it any longer. Here comes another train. Let's see. There we go. Let's see. Short. Third one should be a short. He did it weird too. He cut the third and the fourth one almost into one. I think I know the reason. There's a train stopped over there, and they're going by that train, and maybe it's throwing them off a little bit. And could you hear how there was a little reverberation in there? Ooh, that's because one train was going past the other train. Curious. Anyway, so it goes to show you the train may have a nature, but they don't always abide it perfectly. That's also the nature of the universe, right? So almost done here. After sin and damnation comes complete oblivion. When we die, I believe that's it. There's nothing left of us. There's no reunion with the ones who died before us or who will come later, who will die after us. There's no reconciliation with anyone that we left parted life with on bad terms, because there's nothing left of us, apparently. I'm not saying that there isn't, there's no reason to think there is. And there's no final justice, because it appears there's no justice giver. So those that got away with being bad, got away with it. Those who were good, there's no heavenly reward that I'm aware of. Complete oblivion. So all the while, all the reason why it's so much more important to live well now and not waste our time with sinful behavior, believing things that are not true, as I call it sinful behavior. Last three. Great life adventure, 3. Great life adventure is that activity that makes us live that actuated life that we might be dreaming about when we're young. It's addressing that deep level risk of life, of becoming the writer, becoming the painter, becoming the dancer, becoming a poet, living, traveling, having adventure, making videos, whatever the case may be, learning a new language, anything at all. Some sort of an adventure that gives us that, attends to that deeper level desire we have. And not all people have that. There are a lot of people out there that don't have any interest for anything like that. That's fine. But if you do have that, you better address it. You better address it early. Remember, go to college first. Have some little adventures along the way. Start preparing for it. Plan your great life adventure. Give yourself that until the end of your 20s. And then after that, maybe consider settling down, and then pepper the rest of your life with periodic adventures and some misadventures along the way. You'll be glad you did. The next is the season of philosophy. If you live a life that attends to those interests, or better yet, a virtuous life, where you learn some things, good things along the way, and you feel inclined to write it down or paint about it or put some poems, teach, whatever the case may be. For me, it's writing books like this, going along, coming here and doing that. Then do it. But do it when the interest strikes. If you wait, the voices will be gone. The words won't be there. I mean now, immediately. And if you start young, write young. Although you'll probably look back and chuckle at what you wrote later in life. But do it. The words will be gone. 1, 2, short. 1 more. That was more in character. 2 long, 1 short, 1 very long. The nature of trains. Last one, arena and utility. All of this is the arena for the living of our lives. And all of these objectives and principles, your own, I've got my own here up on the bridge, which you can see. These are the utilities that almost like hang like utilities on a utility belt that we use throughout life to live well. Out here in the canvas of the universe. So come on out. Step out into the universe. Live that life. Don't be afraid. You're not going to be here forever. Not very long at all. There's that stopped train. There's Siberia Ghost Town. There's that train that passed earlier, making its way up towards Ash Hill. This is Route 66. And here comes a car. Hey, I think these are some people on an adventure. A great life adventure of their own. Is that a mobile home? I think so. Let's wave at them as they go by. Howdy. Yeah, they're waving. Yep. That's a great life adventure right there. Couple, possibly retired couple out. Sharing their life together. Being social. Maybe sending postcards back to the family. Making the best of this one life that they get. There they go. Exploring Route 66. It's a good thing. It's a good life. Just extended my tripod legs here. Hey, it's still on. So, I don't know about you. It's time for me to head out of mine. It's kind of a dramatic end. As another train comes along. Woo, that wind. Oh well, it's not perfectly centered, but what the heck. So hey, take care. And don't forget, live your life. You only got a little time left. Take care.